Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. Today's block is called Pinwheel Squares, and it finishes 12 inches. Here is the diagram. Now I've marked on here because I need to make this correction before I upload it. These black triangles here should be patch D, right here. And here are 4 blocks set block to block. Here is patch A. It's a 2-inch by 6-inch finished rectangle. We cut 6.5 inches by 2.5 inch rectangles, and we'll need 4 patches of the background fabric. There are no AccuQuilt dies that will cut this shape. Patch B is a 4-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 4 7/8 inch squares and cut them in half once diagonally for 2 patches. So for the light fabric we need 4 assorted light patches, and for the dark fabric we need 4 assorted dark fabrics. And I coordinated the lights and the darks in the 4 different colors. Patch C is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 2 7/8 inch squares, cut them in half once on the diagonal for 2 patches. We'll need 4 patches of the black and 4 patches of the background. Or if we do the 2 at a time method to make half square triangles, we'll need 2 squares of each. And in that case, just cut the squares 2 7/8, but do not subcut them. Patch D is a 2-inch finished square. We cut 2.5 inch squares. We'll need 4 patches for the background and 4 patches for the black fabric. Here are the AccuQuilt dies that will cut this shape. And these shapes B, C, and D all have AccuQuilt dies that will cut those shapes. Now let's look at the fabrics. This is the background patch A. These are the large half square triangles on the pinwheel, and I've got them coordinated 2 fabrics, a light and a dark, for each of 4. And now it only calls for 1 patch of each, like 1 patch of this and 1 patch of that one. And a patch is half. This would be a patch, this triangle. So in the demo later on, I'm going to show you how to do half square triangles 2 at a time. So what I plan to do with these is go ahead and make 2 half square triangles of each of these. There's no sense in wasting 1 half square triangle. And if you're doing a scrap quilt, you can just put those triangles somewhere else in another block. So that's what we'll do with those. These are the half square triangles that go in the center pinwheel, and we'll do the 2 at a time method to make these half square triangles. These are the squares that go inside the block, and then the black squares are for the stitch and flip with patch A, and we'll go through that too. So the first thing we'll do is look at step 1, and we're going to take the B units, which are the large half square triangles, and we'll make 4 half square triangles. And while you're piecing your large half square triangles 2 at a time, we can stitch the small half square triangles, which is step 2. Now this is patch C, and we'll need to make 4 of these half square triangles that go in the pinwheel here in the center. So we'll take the C patches, 2 dark and 2 light, and make 4 half square triangles from this. If you are not familiar with the 2 at a time method to make half square triangles, here's a short tutorial that shows you how. And go ahead and piece your half square triangles. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. Got all my half square triangles done. So these are the ones I'll use in this block, and these will be used in other blocks. And these are for the pinwheel unit. For step 3, we're going to take the small half square triangles we just sewed and sew it to a D patch, which is the white or the background square. And it needs to look just like this picture. So I put this like this and like this. I'll stitch those together and press the seams open. Next we have step 4, and we're going to take one of the large half square triangles and stitch the unit we just pieced in step 3 like this. This is the dark side of the triangle. So we'll stitch this unit to the dark side of the half square triangle. So this is the dark side of the half square triangle, and then once these are sewn, they'll go like this and be stitched on here like this, and press the seams open. Now we finished step 4, and I forgot to mention to you, these pieces of fabric that I used for the large half square triangles, they're cut 4 7/8 inches. And a lot of these, I went through my leftover or orphan bin and looked for charm squares, the 5-inch charm squares. They're perfect for this. And what you can do is either cut them at 4 7/8 or just go ahead and stitch the half square triangle and trim down the half square triangle. So that would be a very good use of your leftover charm squares, or even charm squares that you have around the house. Now we're on step 5, and this is called a chisel unit. So we're going to use stitch and flip method or the folded corner clipper method, and I'm going to show you how to do both of those methods. Well, we're going to take the patch A, which is this background rectangle, and then what we have left, the dark fabric of patch D. They're both 2.5 inches wide, and we're going to take the square and place it on top of the rectangle like this. We want to mark a diagonal line. So let's look closer at our unit, and we see that we want the triangle to go in this direction. So I'm going to turn this around so you can see both of these at the same time. So this tells me that I need to draw my line this way to stitch, because it follows the same angle as the diagram. I'll just take a ruler, and I have a white pencil here, a marker, and draw a diagonal line. And what I'm going to do is take this to the machine and stitch on the diagonal line, and then we'll come back and trim that. Okay, I've stitched just off to the side of this drawn line. This area here is what we're going to trim off, because when we flip this over, this is our chisel unit like this. And the reason I stitched not on the line but slightly to the left, in this case of the line, is because it gives me a little bit extra room when I'm flipping it over. So what we'll do next is trim this off about 1/4 inch, and then we'll press the seams open, and you'll see that it gets a nice straight edge here, and then it'll be nice in the corner up here. So that's the stitch and flip method. For the folded corner clipper, we do the same thing. We put the square in the place we want it, and remember, we wanted the angle going this way. Let's see, I'm just going to draw a line anyway just to show you what we're doing. This is where you would stitch. That tells me the angle I want, and this is the part I want cut off. So that means I'm going to have to turn this around, and I place the ruler down like this. You match this little top part here. The side of the ruler goes along the edge of that square, and this is the 2.5 inch mark. And then there's a little bitty mark that goes up this way. So it just goes around that square. And I'm going to pull it apart so you can see. So this is the same angle, so we know we have it right. And this is the part we want to cut off. Let me show you this just so you will be refreshed. Okay? So now let's line this up again and cut. Now you'll see that looks exactly the same. And when we stitch 1/4 inch, it's going to be right about that line. So we'll stitch 1/4 inch here and then press the seams open. Our chisel units are done now. So step 6, we just sew the chisel unit to the top of the unit from step 4. So we take this one from step 4 and sew the chisel unit like this. Do that to all 4. Now the last thing we do is just put the block together. And it forms a pinwheel in the center. Let's see. And all these dark triangles are going in this direction, clockwise. Let's see, let me move this out because I don't want that with, okay. There. There's your block. So we're going to sew these two together, and I'm going to flip this over and put a pin here so I won't get it confused. And I'll stitch these two together and press, then I'll stitch the 2 rows together and the block will be finished. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.